All right, and number 9 is just like that, pretty similar. So we're going to go on to the more practice and just get into a little bit more difficult problems. So this is kind of the same thing. Now they have given you an x and a y, and we only have one corresponding side that we actually know of. So we have jk matches up with nm. So that 40 over 16 is what we know of. And I'll change the 16 and I'll make this blue. So there's 16, and then we'll also have 14, and then we'll also have y. And then the thing that corresponds with the 14, Lm, would be KL, so that would be the x. And then with the y, that would be Ln, and that will be JL, which is 45. So if you notice, we have two things that we're solving for here, right? We have x and we have y, and we're not going to be able to solve for them all at once. We have to solve for them individually because we know that all of these are proportional. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on this proportion first and find x, okay? And then I'm going to kind of cut out this x and use this same 40 over 16 and do that proportion. So there's going to be two different proportions here. You'll see what I mean when I write it out. 40 divided by 16, x over 14. So we have 16x equals 40 times 14, and that will be 560. And then x will be 35. So there's x. And now for y, I'm going to kind of mark off this x over 14 and use 40 over 16 again, but now use the 45 over y. So 40y will equal 720 when you cross multiply those. And then y will give you 18. So that's how you would find those two. Just don't set them up all as one. So it's the same thing with number 2. Number 3 is pretty similar to what we did before. I'm going to try and get to some more difficult ones with you. I'll do 4 and 5 to make sure that you can keep these straight. So for number 4, we have AB matches up with AD. So here's the thing. DB right here is only 8, but AB is the whole thing. It's 28. AB is 28. You have to add them together. Be very careful with that. And then AD is 20. And then from there, we know that's going to be proportional to BC, which is 2x plus 3, and DE, which is 15. So we'll do 40x plus 60 equals 28 times 15, which will be, let's see, 420. And then 40x, 360. X will be 9. There you go. All right, and number 5. Again, sometimes you can get kind of confused. A lot of times people want to put NP and PQ as corresponding and MP and PR as corresponding. They just want to match them up like that. But you really need to look at your congruency statement because this is actually inverted and flipped. So NP would go with RP. So NP is this one, RP is this one. So those two are congruent, or those two are proportional. So you need to match them up that way. And then the 24 will go up top and the 28 will go on the bottom. So again, if that x plus 8 is on top, the other things that are in that triangle have to go up top as well. So make sure you keep things straight. And solving that out, you can kind of see down below. For the sake of time, I'm just going to keep moving on. All right, so I'll do 8 and 10 with you, and then I'll kind of move on. So we have ST, which is 40. The whole thing is 40. And then we have ZT to be 5. So in other words, SZ has just got to be 35. Just 40 minus 5. So we could have, let's see here, what have they given us? They've given us RT, and that will match up with YZ. And if you need to write it out like this, RT matches up with YZ, and then we'd have from RT ST, and that will match up with SZ. If you need to write it out like this first and then just plug in what you see, that is perfectly fine. I think it might help you keep things straight, especially if you're struggling with visualizing it. And then ST will be 40 and SZ will be 35. That might be a little easier way for you to to solve these out. And that's perfectly fine. So then I'm pretty much just setting them up for you here. It's kind of a long lesson, not trying to make the video too long. You know how to cross multiply from there. If you don't, you can see the answer key down at the bottom. So for number 10, if triangle KLM is similar to PQR with a scale factor of 3 to 5, find the perimeter of PQR. So we know that these perimeters are congruent, or are proportional. So instead of finding each individual one and then multiplying or then adding them all together, we know that the perimeter of KLM is similar or proportional to the perimeter of PQR. So if we find the perimeter of this first one over here, which would be 33, 27, 30, yep, 33, then we know that that 33 is the perimeter of KLM, and we know that that is proportional to the perimeter of PQR. And instead of using a question mark, we always use a variable. So in other words, 33 over x, and then we need to know which one do we put up top, 3 or 5. It's not always in order. You could have flipped them. So think about this. Which value is going to be greater? The 33, which is the perimeter here, or the x, which is the perimeter of this bigger triangle. So x is obviously bigger, and we're trying to think about how will this simplify out. So when it simplifies out, it'll simplify out to 3/5. So obviously the x needs to go on the bottom because it is bigger, just like the 5 is bigger than the 3. And sometimes you don't even need to cross multiply. Like to get from 33 to 3, you just divide by 11. So we'd kind of multiply by 11 here, and you can see that it's 55. But if not, you can do it like this, cross multiply, and you will see that it is